Hey, hi, and welcome. Alright, another voiceover here. Uh, I made a video last night talking about following distances and stuff like that, and I was going to try to tie in being seen as a part of it, and it worked out. I figured I'd let the topic kind of stand on its own and just go do a separate video on it. So being seen, okay, I talked about following distance, so you can watch that video if you wanted to. But being seen on a bike is a bit of a task of kind of seeing outside yourself and trying to visualize what it looks like you coming down the road. And from your point of view, it might not be as obvious as you would think. And the best way you can get an idea of it is watching other bikes when they pass you. How soon did you see them? Where were they riding? Were they riding really close behind somebody and then you didn't see them at all until they got right up to you? So you could use that as kind of a metric to gauge where you should be in your lane and stuff like that. I tend to float around the lane quite a bit, especially up here. There's a lot of potholes and the roads are pretty divoty and rough in a lot of areas. So I'm constantly readjusting my speeds, my line of track, you name it. But when the traffic gets a little bit heavier, it's a little harder in the city because you don't have as much control over things. You can just kind of manage it the best you can, and you're constantly readjusting and trying to be seen. Now, if we go with the statistics of where the most likely accidents, fatal accidents are for a motorcycle, we know it's the dreaded left-hand turn at an intersection usually. Usually that will cost you your life if you get that one wrong, or if the other guy gets that one wrong. So there's not just so much to be seen as much as you have to realize you got to get a bit of an acknowledgement from the cars you're passing that you are being seen. Sometimes I'll wave, sometimes I'll beep the horn, stuff like that. I definitely always move over when there's a vehicle on the other side or whatever. I don't follow too closely just for the obvious that, and I noticed this the other day. There was a motorcycle that was black like mine, and he was in front of a black car, and it took me a second, again, even as a motorcycle rider myself. Now, mind you, I was just walking on the sidewalk when this happened, but he was close, or the car was close enough behind him that it actually broke up his silhouette enough that it took a second for me to, like, I knew something wasn't right with the vehicle coming at me, but it was just the way the sun was on it and everything like that. It took me a second to realize that there was 3 headlights in front of this car, and then I realized, oh my god, there's a bike right in front of the car. But they were following, he was being followed pretty close, so when you're being followed closely like that, yes, it's not your fault or whatever, but you have to understand, people, let's say they're about to turn left, they might acknowledge the car or the truck behind you, but they might not actually acknowledge you're in front of the vehicle until it's too late. And, when we're talking, you know, seconds count type of thing. That could be just enough for somebody to think they have enough time to get in front of you, and you're just far enough ahead that you're going to end up on their hood. So whenever you see somebody turning, it's a good idea to see if you can make eye contact, wave at them or something, and just get an acknowledgement. If they wave back, they're looking at you. Just look to see if they're actually looking in your direction. That's another thing. There's so much that can be said just for that, but you really have to be, ride like you're invisible, like everybody's trying to kill you because they can. Now, the other thing I notice is where you follow, whether you're closer to the line, to the center of the road or to the outer part of the road, can make a difference of you being seen too. Depending on the cornering, like for example, if I'm on a corner, I tend to, you do your out in out when you go into a corner, but if I have a vehicle ahead of me, I tend to want to get myself into the line of sight of the driver's mirror whenever we come back into a straightaway or whatever. But when we're in the corner, I always check my mirrors behind me, just as I'm entering the corner as the bikes lean over, because I can see who's behind me and I can take a gauge of how close people are and stuff like that. The other thing is, if you follow too closely to the vehicle ahead of you, you can't control the guy ahead of you, but you can control yourself. And if you think you're, far enough behind the guy, just slow down and let him get a little bit more ahead of you, because you'd be surprised how close or how far back you could be, and with oncoming traffic, they will not see you. And why this is a big problem is, especially if you're on a double passing line or something like that, and somebody sees the vehicle that you're behind, but you're really, you're close enough behind, maybe you think you have adequate distance, but they go to pass somebody, and then all of a sudden they're pulling right into your lane, not realizing you're there. But if you're just back a bit more, the law of 3 seconds is a good rule, but I'd even go to 6 seconds. Give somebody a 6 second lead on you if you're on open road. I mean, there's no reason to be riding bumper to bumper anyway. Usually, if you're that far behind, you're going to contrast with the road, and people are going to see you. The other thing is to make sure that when you do ride, if you're riding in the center of the lane or something like that, you got to understand that people coming the other way are probably not going to see you. If you basically are near the center line, you don't always necessarily get seen by somebody turning right. They're looking in their right mirror, that type of thing. So again, where you are in the corner, stuff like that, always give yourself adequate distance. I know common sense stuff, but just to be more mindful of it. In the city, it's a lot harder to be seen. There's no doubt about that. The big trick I find in the city is just do the speed limit, and usually you give yourself enough. Because remember, most vehicles, cars, even bikers too, can't judge the speed of an oncoming motorcycle. It's almost impossible to do. They see you, they think they got lots of time because you're way back there. They look the other way, they look back, start pulling out and bang, next thing you know you're right on their hood. Because oftentimes the motorcycle is always going too fast. Not all the time, but a good proportion of the time, people ride way too fast in the traffic. And if you find yourself passing all the vehicles around you, you're going too fast for the traffic. And it's not so much you're not giving the guy ahead of you not enough time to make to respond, but you're not giving yourself enough time to respond either. And that's what really counts, is not so much their response but your response. It's most of the time when people get into accidents on the bike and they ask and the car's at fault, it's usually I didn't see him. And they've even figured out, again, it takes a second or two to realize people are looking at a motorcycle. Yes, there's enough of us out there, you'd think everybody would be completely, look at it and register right away. But strangely enough, it doesn't. It takes a second or two for people to register that they're actually looking at a motorcycle. So knowing that, then again, at that point, you should anticipate and learn to anticipate people being indecisive at intersections. I've got to, is it this turn or the next turn? Is it this left or the next left? That type of thing. So when you're in those kind of situations where you're going down like a boulevard or something like that, and there's turns on the left and right everywhere, you really shouldn't be passing the traffic, because at some point someone's going to make a blind turn. Is it their fault? Yes, it's their fault, but it doesn't really matter if you're the one getting hurt, right? The idea is don't get yourself in that situation, because it's going to happen. And again, the easiest way, I know it sounds crazily simple, and it is just don't be passing the traffic. So whatever the speed of the traffic is, increase your safety margins as much as possible. But to be seen, you're going to have to kind of pay attention to where other bikes are. Some things I do, I run the headlight on high beam during the day. I treat it, and it's also good practice too, because if you use just whatever the highway safety code is, and you can run your headlight high beam night or day, but you can't flash somebody with the high beam. You have to 150 meters or about 450 feet from another oncoming vehicle, you have to go to your low beam. But the people register the flicker. I saw a motorcycle today, actually. This guy had his high beams on, and trust me, it really stood out. He was on the other side of the town. If he had his low beams on, I'd probably be able to pick him out, but not as much as it does help. So whenever you see the oncoming traffic, just treat it as if you were riding at night. That does increase your visibility. You got a North Star in front of the bike even during the day, you know what I mean? It makes you stand out. The other one is when you're riding down, especially like where I have, there's a lot of trees along the sides of the roads, and you get a lot of shady spots, that type of thing. So again, people don't really register that you're there. So that's the other thing. The other thing is heavy vehicles. Give them room. Give them room, because I can guarantee you nobody can see you behind an 18-wheeler. They just can't see you there. And where the danger for us is, again, somebody passing on the other side. they go around a vehicle, they see the big truck, and then they tuck into figure nobody's there, and next thing you know, they're coming right at you. I've had that happen to me a couple of times, that type of thing. But normally, I have enough following distance that I can take evasive action long before anything to worry about, right? So yeah, don't tailgate. Just don't do it. You're putting yourself at risk more than anything. Obvious stuff like that. But distance is vision, and that's the thing. Driving is a 95% visual thing. So when we're in the tight traffic, we can't control the guy ahead of us as much, but we can control the guy behind us. So we can slow down. If they don't like it, they'll just pass and go around, whatever, that type of thing. So whenever the traffic's tight, you really want to be playing around with being in different spots where you're going to ride. Never be if you can avoid it, try to never be riding beside another vehicle if it's like, say, a double lane or something like that. Because even if you're right beside somebody, but let's say your front wheel's at their back door, if they don't do a shoulder check, they probably won't even see you in the mirror, especially if you're towards the line. They won't register. By the time they register you're there, they've already moved into your space, that type of thing. So again, you want to be ahead of people or you want to be behind people. You never want to have any part of your motorcycle beside a vehicle. That's just risk for you. Because people are usually looking ahead of themselves. They might, if you're lucky, they'll look in the mirror before they do a lane change. Most times, a lot of people don't. This is something I notice. If people are wearing hats, people wearing hats usually never do that. But anyway, more can be said on the subject, but make yourself as visible as possible. Bright colors help too. All right, have a good day.